to appreciate Rick Schick for our childhood memories of how the Thunder Zords were made, as well as other Power Ranger seasons with the VFX, with the lightning effects, everything that he's done. So, with that being said, let's get into this video.
Huge, and they were going to need more people. They wanted to do more stuff and make it cooler. So somehow they hired me to work on it.
This is Rick Schick. He was a VFX artist on Power Rangers.
The third visual effects artist hired for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Sorry, Rick. The third VFX artist on Power Rangers. Rick's responsible for some of our favorite shots like this, and this.
What? I did not know that.
He's also worked on Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, Spider-Man, I Am Legend, and Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
You mean to tell me he worked on all of those effects? All of those projects? I think I've been bamboozled.
A huge long list of things.
In this panel filmed at RangerStop Orlando, Rick shared a look into the VFX process, production stories, and never before seen footage from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
I'm in for it. Let's go.
Back in the day, the reason I was hired initially was because I could sculpt. So I made these putties. I did the stop motion animation of the putties when they would all break apart. So I shot this on a thing called a Manipulator 3000, was a downward facing camera. So the camera would be up in the air.
Okay.
And it would aim down at the glass plate with the sculpture on it. I'd line the sculpture up with the actor, and then I would animate it breaking apart frame at a time. And then we drew these glows over the top to help hide the transformation from the actor to the sculpture.
Hey, that's crazy.
And you see the sculptures.
I'm not gonna lie, season 2 putties, they look real. I mean, they look really cool with the stop motions where they break apart. But the fact that he was able to create all of those effects, absolute cinema.
Because it didn't need to be. We didn't have time to make them super detailed. And I'd use the same clay over and over again. It was an oil-based clay. And I actually have one here. At our booth, we'll have these putties as well. I was calling this a screen-ready putty. It's the exact same size and same materials, same shape, same everything that I used to make that was used in the show. Oh. And so I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. Okay, so some of the stuff I have is for the transformation sequence from Dinosaur to Thunder Zord, because that never happened in the Japanese footage. So this is the mountain range that I'm building in my friend's garage. And you can see the progression of it. I actually thought I had a really great idea of just digging a trench in dirt and then putting expanding foam in it. And I figure, pop it out, and hey, you have an instant mountain. Well, it looked like crap. It looked like this thing on top. So it just became the base of the mountain range that I ended up sculpting. And I made them after the Southern California mountains because they were shooting in Valencia. I didn't know at the time that it needed to match in with Japanese footage where it's like these really rolling, rounded
it does look like a little
mountains. But you know, if you don't tell the artist, they don't know what to do. So anyway, these are my Southern California mountains, and you can see there's even a little mountain range painted on the back of the sky scrim in the back to add layers.
I was wondering why it wasn't even green screening in the first place, because when you think about it, looking back on season 2, I literally thought that they used the green screen for the sky scenes. But the fact that he said that they actually painted the sky to make it look real, now it seems like all the other secrets are just exposed, and now we know how the shows are made.
And then we actually took toys, because Saban would not send us the puppets from Japan because it was too expensive. And I had to go to a specific toy store in Santa Monica that had Japanese toys, because the toys were not available in America yet. There was no American version yet.
Oh, God.
So I bought the toys, and then a team of us turned them into puppets, and that's me puppeteering underneath there. This is the transformation sequence. All right, so that's a toy turned into a puppet.
You got to give them credit for buying the Japanese toys and turning it into Americanized style. As far as like the production stuff goes, the way that the Triceratops look, he looks like he was made from the U.S., but they somehow had to turn it into production style where they where they customize the action figures. And the way they did it looks so cool, though. Like, I like what I'm seeing.
And that's the mountain range, the dust, the foreground element. I built all of that. And we shot it in the studio in Valencia, where Power Rangers was shot. Most of the work I did was at a post-production facility in Burbank, but occasionally we go on set and shoot stuff. And this was a big enough deal that we actually had to go to their stages to shoot it. So this is our own dust element to layer in with the puppets. There's a little guy.
That is so
we're
cool.
puppeteering it for like 30 seconds, and it's in it for maybe
What?
less than a second. It's barely in the show. When you see these, if you come by my booth and check it out and see it in person,
30 years ago, when I watched this show, I used to always think these toys came from Japan, bro. But it's the fact that the show, the prop, made it look so different, just to make it look more realistic when they transform into the Thunder Zords. But when you get to the Japanese stock footage, it looks different. Maybe that would explain why Watson always used the Zap toy lines for the Megazord. You got to give props to the producers on TV.
still a toy because we weren't going to shoot it, so we didn't paint it up. We didn't try to make it look large and weathered. One of the other props here, this is the one that was in the show. And if you, like I said, if you come by our booth, you'll see on this side, it still looks like a toy because this side, it still looks like a toy because we were never going to shoot this side. So we only painted one side. It didn't make sense to paint both sides. And also this side is where we could hide all the mechanism to move the arms or, like the legs puppeteer from below. So that's not a problem, but we wanted to hide, the mechanisms that move the arms and move the head. So from this side, you would never see that part. Oh, that was a very early morph for us. To my taste, there wasn't quite enough lightning on this. My friend Trent Shumway, all the lightning that you'd see in this show was hand-drawn. We draw it frame at a time.
I knew it.
I still do that to this day when I can. If I've had some shows, I worked on Apple's Dickinson. We had a scene where she goes back in time and they wanted electricity. We tried doing computer-generated electricity, and it just looked like crap compared to the electricity that I or some of the other guys, Jeff West, I rehired him to do the electricity for Dickinson. So even today, hand-drawn electricity is still my absolute favorite. When Kat came on, we had to redo.
This is crazy. All
steal
this
the energy
I'm
from
learning
behind Kimberly because it had already been composited together, and make a new element to put behind her. So that element, I actually still have that element in my library, so we can put you in the show using the exact footage from the show, not a recreation of it, not a fake version of it, but the actual elements that were in the show. We can put you in it too, and that's what we had to do for Kat. I really dug this at the time that Tommy had jumped on a trampoline, and I thought, cool, I will cut him out, though that was me cutting him out, so quickly it goes by, and have him come flying in and have the teleport reveal off of him. So all that electricity, it's all hand-drawn. Each frame, I've probably done hundreds of thousands of bolts of electricity at this point in my life. I still like doing it. It's still a lot of fun. And actually, that's one of the things I'm doing, too, is I can take a picture of you and draw electricity on your picture. You have actual Mighty Morphin, Power Ranger, authentic electricity, because I drew it for the show, so if I draw it for you, it's the same stuff. I actually ruined some TVs with this, where at the time we didn't know what we were doing. We were just kids working on the show. I was 23 or so, and the red was way too red, and most monitors could not produce that red, and it would just turn grainy on your TV. Of course, I didn't know that, and we didn't really have quality control checking out what we were doing. I'm like, it's supposed to be evil coming, evil is engulfing her, and then it goes away from her. So I'm like, okay, it's evil, it's red. I'll make it red. And you see the fire elements that I bended and warped around her. I'd have to, the sparks. We'd bend and warp sparks. So we'd take elements that we shot in a basement. The basement where I worked at Modern Video Film. We had 2 parking spots that we could use to shoot whatever we needed. And fortunately, we had our accountant was also a pyrotechnician. So he could get all these different chemicals, and then we could just light them on fire in the basement and shoot them to make our own elements. So this was scanning Tommy's brain, and I really wanted to have a brain. I always like shooting stuff for real if I can, so I got this brain prop, and that's me holding it, over blue and trying. This is primitive match motion, where he's kind of acting, and so I'm trying to kind of move the head the same way his head was moving. Nowadays, it would all be computer generated. The computer would track it for you. You can adjust it if you need to. Sometimes the computers don't always do the right thing. But back then, this was as close as we were going to get to tracking a 3D element in. And then I also had to paint out his head entirely and make a new background because they weren't planning on removing his head to scan his brain. That was just the idea that I had, is like, well, I want to see through his head. So now I got to paint a new background and cut out alpha, put alpha back on top. All of those little circles, it's all hand-drawn energy. And we can light the different colors, light the different layers, different
I used to
colors.
always think
this was really fun because we were told to not set the Rangers on fire anymore.
Just like use a hand-drawn
but
stuff.
I was able to set them on fire because I turned it green. So if you turn fire green, then
That's
I am someone who suddenly doesn't.
I've always liked this part from Adam. It was one of his best episodes. But the fact that Dad used that little green effects to make it look like he was on fire or something. Just imagine Adam being caught on fire when his powers started to act stupid and carrying on. Like, imagine that scene there on Power Rangers Zeo.
So somehow we got by their edict. Like, we're always trying to add fun things and do jokes for ourselves, whatever interested us as well. And so getting to burn, is this Rocky? Adam? This is Adam. Burn Adam down. Yeah. So it was like I was very proud of the fact that I got to burn him down. And that, once again, it wasn't like, how is he going to disappear? No one knew. It was just up to us to make it up. And so, like, a lot of these things, they just shoot a plate of the stuff there, and then I cut it apart, and then I animate the different pieces moving in. You saw the mats flash through that cut out the different pieces. So I have to animate everything by hand back then. Even the little wires of the ring, I drew them coming on. I would reveal them frame at a time.
Tight, bro.
But yep, burned up a Ranger. You're told not to do that. This is fun. A lot of the young Rangers are here today, which is pretty cool.
Oh, no.
I really dug this. We have to make them smaller, right? And so I was thinking, okay, they're just going to wipe away. But you can see how they're kind of blobbing out as well. All that blobbing out is just pulling the frame like with a brush, one frame at a time. So it's just all hand painting to do that.
Just saying.
And when young Tommy, when he shakes his head back and forth, like, that's an opportunity to exaggerate his head move. And he seems like a extending that just because it's funny to me. And this I thought was really gross, and I won't get away with it. Sliding his face down the car door, like, what? Like, I totally thought that they would reject that because it would be too disgusting, but they didn't care. I guess they didn't think about it's really gross that his face just came off. But that's something that, once again, weird. That's a decision as an artist that I was allowed to make. And I did it just because it amused me, and it ended up being in the show. I guess if anyone has any questions, we can open it up to questions, or if you guys want to get going or whatever. Oh, wait, these guys have a panel too? Yes, sir.
So when you had to, like, buy brand new toys for the puppeteering, how much of it did you actually just have to disassemble and just redesign into?
Whatever it took to get it done. So there were a team of people. Connor McCullough at the time, he ran the Monster Shop, and we got to work with him on that. Usually we were sitting in rooms doing computer stuff or in the basement shooting elements. But for this, it was big enough that we worked with Connor McCullough. And so most of his team, like, I bought the toys because I lived near where I knew where we could get them. And then his team did the puppeteering. I did the Unicorn Thunder Zord myself because it was a little simpler. But basically, I just broke apart whatever I needed to. And, like, there were hinges in it. And I drilled a hole through it to put a rod and, glued some wire to it. So we destroyed it as much as we needed to get it to eventually be able to move. And if you look at the Dinosaur again, you'll see his one of his arms his arms are a little bit longer. So the artist who did this, they sculpted this new piece to make it longer just so that something would show up when it's moving. I thought they just brought the toys, because if it's really short, it's going to get this. So you want to see that movement behind it. So we destroyed the toys as much as we needed to for whatever action we wanted to get out of them.
Okay, so I had two questions. The first one, I wanted to circle back to something you said earlier because it just kind of stuck out to me. You said you knew an accountant who just did pyrotechnics part-time?
Yes.
How does that work? It's like,
he had his pyrotechnic license. Some people have pilot's license, They can fly airplanes, but it's not their job. So, yeah, he just happened to have a pyrotechnic license because he liked fireworks. And I never asked him if in a previous life, if he did fireworks or what, but yeah, it was awesome.
I guess that's why networking's important.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so the second thing was, I remember you said you had to buy, like, the Japanese toys specifically.
Yes.
Now, this is kind of a weird question, but you were reimbursed for that, right?
I'm sure I was, because I couldn't afford to just buy them and give them to them back then.
All right.
Yeah, we were not paid a lot at the beginning.
Because I know that, like, there were other times where if anyone needed something for the show, they would literally send somebody out to the toy store and be like, hey, bro, we lost all the morphers. Go ahead and buy 6 of those for me right quick.
Oh, yeah. And like, that'd be the job of a PA. Like, you'd send a production assistant. They're doing whatever needs to be done, and sometimes all they're doing is driving around doing whatever someone wants or needs.
Hi. I just wanted to know if there was a specific reason that was ever explained to you guys of why the Japanese creators didn't let you guys use those exact animatronics?
It was because Haim Saban did not want to spend the money to ship the giant models over to America. So we were, so I'm like, that's too expensive. Go get some toys at the store. What are you doing? Like, spending my money for?
That impression was spot on.
Yeah, so it was just a matter of how...
Here's the thing with the Power Rangers reboot. If they're going to adapt, remake Mighty Morphin once again, I would seriously hope to God they could just somehow just use some type of animatronics or just make it their own and make it look more realistic in their own version. Now that everything is more computer generated nowadays, but Saban, the cheapskate that he is, I'm not really surprised by it because he's a known cheapskate. He wouldn't want to spend his own money on Japanese toys to have it propped in the US style to make it look brand new just for the show. But I'm not surprised of how Saban used his ways back then. So the show was non-union back then, so that's why.
It's a way to do it. And so because there were toys in America that weren't, the ones available yet out at Toys R Us, but in the specialty stores, that's what route we went. And we, as artists, we were disappointed because we wanted to use the real models. Like, oh, that would be so cool to shoot those. It's like, no, you don't get to do that. Now, it's interesting because later on, Beetleborgs, because I worked on all the Saban stuff that was out at that time. So Beetleborgs, when we were going to do their robots driving down the road or flying through the air, they decided to send us the models to do a 3D scan of them because we now had a 3D department. When Beetleborgs came around, 3D was brand new. I was always angry at 3D because I'm like, you can't actually touch it. That's not 3D. It's like behind a screen. Like what I make is 3D because you can touch it and feel it. Because I made a lot of puppets as well. For whatever reason, we were able to convince them. Maybe they thought it was going to be a bigger hit. Maybe they had enough money after a few seasons of Power Rangers had gone by. But for that, they did send us the models, and we were just flipping out when we saw them in person. They were so cool. It was really neat. And then we didn't even shoot those models, but we took them to a facility. Now you just scan it yourself. But we actually had to take them to a facility to get those models scanned because that was a very specific job that a company would do. And I remember the people in line before us were there for Jurassic Park 2, and they had like a Tyrannosaurus leg or something that they were scanning. And we're just like, huh? Like so excited to see a Stan Winston sculpture in person. It was really cool.
What
if Netflix were to make Big Bad Beetleborgs right now? I think we all know the show is going to end up doing some big numbers because we all know VR Troopers, Big Bad Beetleborgs, like two of my favorite shows. I could care less about Mystic Knights. That show was crap anyway, in my honest opinion. Even though I do appreciate them trying to do something original, but it was not like how Power Rangers, Big Bad Beetleborgs, and VR Troopers morphin sequence looked like. But honestly, if they were to film this show or special on Netflix, they can hire this guy to work on the computer generated VFX on the CGI or the writers or whatever you want to call it. But when you think about it, I personally believe that Beetleborgs might end up making a comeback. They're not. But I'm just making some assumptions of what's going to happen if they were to make it on Netflix. But I don't think Hasbro owns Beetleborgs. Whoever owns it, make it happen. I don't know.
generation now who do want to get into the behind the scenes?
Make something. So a lot of people have ideas. Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's actually creating something. Like my daughter is She just graduated from college. She does 3D animation. She's directed 2 short films. And my thing with her was always finish. Don't just start something. Don't just have an idea. It's better to have 15 seconds of something that looks awesome than 20 minutes of something that looks like crap. And I know because I made a crappy movie in 1999 about the Millennium Bug. And it's like a live action animatic, and it's awful and terrible. And no one can look past the fact that it's so awful and terrible. And I would have served me better if I had made 30 seconds that looked, wow, like a real movie.
The thing though, even as you get older, you can always improve on your work. Like me, I'm 33 years old, and I've gotten better with my art throughout the years. So it's never too late to like try again. It's okay to fail, because that failure comes with redemption, and that redemption comes success. And so the fact that he was able to admit his L and learn from that mistake and grow from it, big ups.
Garbage that kind of like lays things out where I can see where it's going, but other people are like, this is it? This is all you got? It's like, well, no, this is just the next step. A lot of people who say they're creative or are in charge of making these decisions can't see anything until it's in front of them. So that's something else to keep in mind, because if you're a creative person, and I've found, like, even like with my own family, like where my sister hires someone to decorate her house, I'm like, how do you not know what you want in your house? Like, it's just disgusting. like you upset me. So, but the thing is, she can't see anything until someone shows it to her. And so if you have the ability to see something, that's very special for you. And, you know, 90% of the people can't see that the way that you can. So, and I know that that's a skill that I realized, oh, I have that ability to see things before they're done, which is how I'm able to lead teams of artists to get something done, which is what I do now. I manage lots of artists.
Bring in a team, you'll make it happen.
Good question. Yeah.
And shout outs to Rick Schick for giving us a glimpse of how his effects works on our show back in the day to where he is now. If you like this video, let me know in the comments down below. I'm out of here.